the other day before all that rain got here.
All right, not a whole lot of an update in here, but the outlets and some lights are in. Hit that switch. Nope.
This one.
Ah.
Yeah, there they are.
And then what switch are those two on? Are they not on one yet? Or is it down here? Yeah, I bet so. One should be for up there, and then the other one will be for those two outlets back there.
Yeah,
so
one's for your lights.
Logan's still working on the mudding, but it's nice to have some light and some heat. But yeah, definitely still a work in progress, but it's coming along. Is that not the tiniest panel you've ever seen?
Does the trick.
Yep. All of Logan's little work stuff.
Your air conditioner's still sitting there.
Yeah, but we won't need that for a while yet, so.
Yeah, that's why he didn't put it in yet.
And the loft still needs to be extended. It's definitely going to be a slow work in progress, but it's coming along.
Good job, guys.
You got miles to run out here, don't you? All right. Let's see the finished inside. There you go, pups. Go on, Jake. Everything's all set up and going. And appliances in. Get this side with the fridge. We got some furniture and a very temporary TV situation until the one comes in to hang.
Yeah, there'll be a little difference in size.
And the new furniture. And my stepdad looking super happy watching his little tiny TV a mile away.
Very well.
And the bathroom. The cabinet they ended up settling on because the pie chest that she was hoping to be able to repurpose for in here was definitely too wide.
It's going to be out in the shop for all of our cookout stuff.
Yeah.
Plates and stuff.
And their finished bedroom with the furniture in it. And then the one room that's not finished yet because they flubbed up ordering the door frames and stuff, which thankfully this will be Grandpa's room and his house. He's just getting ready to put it on the market sometime this week. So it'll probably be a month or two yet before he needs it. But right now this is the catch-all room.
Yeah, I gotta get that all cleaned out.
Sort through stuff and get rid of things that don't fit, huh?
Yeah, it's going Goodwill.
Yeah.
Give people that can use it.
That's it.
Now we're in the washer dryer closet.
Yeah.
That's handy
And the best view out a back door ever.
He loves it.
I'm a movie star, aren't you?
But Mr. Sparty over there is hiding from it.
There's a lot of difference between this soft brush on this short coat and there's that undercoat brush. Yeah.
Yo, motherfucker.
This is bullshit.
Yo, motherfucker.
Spartan works for the resistance. Poor abused puppy.
Look at that.
Ugh. Hairiest dog breed known to man.
Yeah, if you're gonna get an Australian Shepherd or Shepherd of any kind, you better have one of these.
I'm making myself a plant-based lasagna for the week, and that starts with making a cashew cream sauce to go in place of the bechamel. I always soak my cashews for at least 30 minutes beforehand, And then in a blender, I add to that the juice of a lemon, a good shake of nutritional yeast, and then season with a little salt, pepper, and garlic powder. And then I pour in the almond milk and blend, and then I will check it, and if it needs more, I'll add a little bit more almond milk and keep blending until I get a good, somewhat liquidy but smooth consistency, just like bechamel sauce. For the protein, I'm going to boil some red lentils to toss into the sauce. I wanted zucchini, but they were out at the store, so I'm slicing up some yellow squash to add. Then adding the lasagna noodles to a pot with some water, and I'm going to boil it up on the stove. Now I'm adding the sauce, just plain marinara, to the lentils, and I'm seasoning with garlic and a little salt and pepper and some Italian seasoning. I always like to start by layering a small little bit of the sauce in the bottom of the dish to help with sticking. Then I started building my layers. I started with the lasagna noodles, and then I would add on my cashew cream sauce after that so I could spread it really nicely over top of the noodles. And then from there, I would add the yellow squash or zucchini if you have it. And then I added a good handful of spinach and then added the sauce on top of that. And then I just kept continuing to build those layers until I was done and the bowl was full and my ingredients were pretty well used up. Once it was ready, I put it in a preheated oven at 400 degrees and baked for about 25 minutes.
Information order. The idea is to diversify media access, to encourage alternatives to the global media system, which is under the overwhelming dominance of the Western industrial powers. Up until the Tet Offensive, the media had typically reported the war as the American command wanted them to see it. Journalists were taken on guided tours. There were very few that did anything different from that, and they presented the war as perceived under the control of the American military. But during the Tet Offensive, that didn't work. The war was all around them. They could look out the windows of their hotels and see fighting. And they saw that it was a very different war than the one that they had been programmed to present. The hidden hand of the market can be almost as potent an instrument of control as the iron fist of the state. These conclusions have some initial plausibility on guided free market assumptions that are
I promised I would come to you with a little bit of nutrition information. This is the first chance I've had to jump back into my course since last Friday, I think Thursday might have been the last time I had a chance because it was just a busy weekend and busy days, and so I took a little time on my lunch break to go ahead and go through a couple more of the videos, but before I have to go back to work, I thought I would just hop on and kind of share some of the information I've learned already. So the course title led me to believe that it was supposed to be centered on vitamin D, brain health, and Parkinson's. I'm finding that this is really just a big compilation of a bunch of random stuff. And so I don't know how much I'm liking this course. The fact that the price was only $69 when the rest of the 8 credit courses are more around the $100 mark, give or take a little. So I guess that's probably why, but from what I can see, there's one course or one video in the course on Parkinson's. There have been 2 so far on vitamin D and 1 on brain health. So the rest of it's just kind of random stuff, which is fine. I mean, it's always good to have a broad range of knowledge about things, but I will go ahead and share a little bit about what I've learned. Let's see. So one thing that I did find interesting was the idea of reductionism in nutrition. And what that means is, rather than having this big broad scope of what nutrition is all about where you get full information, our government in particular is bad about kind of breaking things down into small parts and like kind of cherry picking things that they want us to learn and want us to know. And so that leads us to an idea of, well, this vitamin is really good for this thing, and that supplement will take care of this thing. So I can take these supplements and I don't need to focus on diet. So the idea of a full diet and lifestyle overhaul as the only real way to prevent disease and promote longevity is kind of lost in translation. So I did like the expansion on that. It gave me a few things that I could probably write about. And then it talked about fish and brain health, which this one for me, it wasn't new information. I mean, the idea is that omega-3, we need this for brain health, and the only way we can get it is from fish, or at least that's what we're told. And in reality, we can get it from other sources. We can get it from plant sources. So just as an example, I daily consume flaxseed and walnuts and hemp seed, and you can get omega-3 from all of those sources, but you can also get it from seaweed. So like when you're eating sushi or seaweed salad and things like that, you can get it that way as well. And the thing that it does talk about, which is also not really new information, but it talks about how eating fish actually increases the risk of mortality because of all of the pollution, really more than anything else, in our oceans and in our waters that these fish then absorb and then we are eating. So we're getting high levels of PCBs, of microplastics, and really the worst one is mercury. And that's important when we're talking about brain health, because mercury poisoning can present itself as dementia or Alzheimer's because you're losing your memory, and you know that's the first thing that people are going to go to. And when in reality, and this is what's happened in so many of these studies, is people would take fish out of the diet and those symptoms would completely go away, and they realized that it was not Alzheimer's at all or dementia, it was actually mercury poisoning. Let's see. So it talks about white or brown rice, and so this is also not new information, because when you look at white rice and brown rice, you're essentially looking at simple carb versus complex carb, because the white carbohydrate or white rice has had all of the nutrients kind of stripped away from it in order to improve that kind of softer texture that people tend to like better. Well, when you do that, you are speeding up the process by which your body absorbs this, so you don't get that slow and easy breakdown of the carbohydrate by your body. And so that is, first of all, for people who are diabetic, it's going to cause that spike in insulin because of how quickly that carbohydrate has come into the body. And then in addition to that, it talks about weight loss and blood pressure whenever you're eating brown rice versus white rice, and it's really for a lot of those same reasons. Let's see, gut dysbiosis is something that is, so it was a very short video, but honestly, Dr. Bulsiewicz has done an entire book called, oh gosh, what is the name of his book? It's been so long now since I read it. I'll have to look it up and then I'll add that to the screen here. But anyway, his book, he goes in depth about it. He's done so many interviews that you can find all over the place online if you want to learn more about gut dysbiosis, but it talks a lot about gut flora and the benefits of fiber to your gut flora. It talks a lot about kind of your bad bacteria versus your good bacteria, and how when you eat a diet that is high in fibrous foods, which is, obviously not meat, dairy, and processed things, it's all of your beans, nuts, seeds, whole grains, fresh fruits, and vegetables, it sends fiber into your gut. It feeds your prebiotics, which then feed your probiotics, which then feed your postbiotics, and all of the good, healthy gut bacteria are able to thrive. And this is a significant improvement to your health, but especially to things like autoimmune disorders. And then there is one about Coke versus Pepsi and the caramel coloring that is in it. So the caramel coloring that they use, not just in sodas, but in all kinds of different foods, is carcinogenic, but it looks like Coke actually uses a lot more than Pepsi, so the risk is higher when you're drinking Coke, but obviously it's preferable to not drink either one. And it does also talk about the increase in asthma in kids and early puberty in girls. And then it says something about, I have down here, narrower arteries in the eyes of children. And it makes me wonder, because I loved Coca-Cola when I was a kid, and I was pretty much blind as a bat. By the time I got LASIK surgery, my prescription was down to a -8.5. And then, so if, in case you don't have nearsightedness, minus 12 is as low as you can go. So minus 8.5 is pretty darn bad. Most people don't get anywhere close to that. And then there was one about prostate cancer. And a lot of the focus on that was actually on how it's difficult to get male patients in particular to adhere to diet and lifestyle changes because they see eating healthy as a feminine thing. So women obviously don't have a prostate, but when you compare prostate cancer to breast cancer, which are both hormonal cancers in men and women, it's easier to get women to adhere to dietary restrictions than it is to get men to do the same. And, you know, sadly, one of the statistics was that a quarter of men would actually rather die prematurely than to stop eating beef and pork. So there's definitely a lot of work to be done on kind of, I guess, just getting men to care about their life. I don't know what other way to put that, but and then it moves on and it talks about tobacco, and you know, there's not a whole lot of new information here either. We all know that tobacco smoking leads to lung cancer, not to mention other diseases like emphysema, COPD. But the correlation that it is making in this video in particular is how we live in a world where, because of money involved in the tobacco industry and our government and lobbying and the connections there, which we see endlessly today in so many different arenas, our government ignored so many studies. I mean, there were something like 6,000 or 7,000 studies that were done that proved the correlation between smoking and lung cancer before they would ever issue any warnings about it. So, I mean, 6,000, that's a lot of information to ignore, you know? And so our government did that, and because it was subsidizing the tobacco industry. And we are now seeing the exact same kind of a situation in our food. We know that meat and dairy and processed foods are unhealthy. This is not new information. It is information that is largely ignored, however, both by the public and by our government. And so we are kind of seeing the same situation with tobacco repeated all over again. We are not seeing the number of warnings that we should be from our government, nor are we seeing dietary guidelines and recommendations being updated to reflect this information from our government about what is actually good for our health and what is hazardous for our health. And, you know, the agriculture industry in this country is heavily subsidized by the USDA, who is also writing our nutritional guidelines. So of course they're not going to go against the very things that they are subsidizing. They're going to want to push us to purchase all of those things that are being subsidized. So in order to keep the ag industry going, and in order to keep big business who are lobbying, so think like, you know, Nestle, for example, or Kraft, or any of those that produce a lot of heavily processed foods, you know, these are big, massive conglomerates that are lobbying and sending dollars into our government officials to get them to write laws that are going to help them rather than hurt them. So we have a lot of work to do there. I would argue that when it comes to nutrition and food, we are probably far worse off than we were with smoking, because I'm positive that there have been far more than 6,000 studies done. In the book that Dr. Michael Greger wrote that just came out on December 5th, How Not to Age, in that book alone, he cited 13,000 studies, 13,000 for one book. And, you know, these are things that are being ignored, and our guidelines are not being updated. So I would say that it's probably actually far worse than it ever was with tobacco and smoking. It talks about turmeric and curcumin, which curcumin is a component of turmeric that is an antioxidant, but this is talking about why supplements for curcumin are not as effective as taking turmeric itself, and it's because there are other smaller compounds of turmeric that are also beneficial in addition to the curcumin, and when all taken together in the whole food form, which honestly is the case for supplements across the board. You are always better getting it from whole food form than you ever are from taking a pill or a supplement. It is much more effective to do the turmeric than a curcumin supplement. And then there is one on protein, which protein is huge, and I could talk on this topic for a while, and this has already been going on for a bit, so I kind of want to hold off on that, but I could do another segment of a video and talk specifically about protein in another one. So we'll keep that in mind. And then lastly, the last 2 videos were about vitamin D. Again, not a whole lot of new information there. They learned that a lot of the benefits of vitamin D, where it was supposed to help, you know, arterial function, it was supposed to help diabetes, all of these different diseases, vitamin D was supposed to be a magic cure-all. And it turns out that most of these studies that came to this conclusion were observational studies, which means they were looking at people that had high vitamin D levels and disease, and how when vitamin D went up, disease dropped. However, vitamin D is something that is largely generated by the sun, right? That's how we naturally produce vitamin D. And so the correlation was essentially that people that are getting higher levels of vitamin D were doing so because they were spending more time active outdoors. More time active outdoors naturally leads to lower weight and improved health for both arteries, for diabetes, and for a plethora of other conditions. And then the next video was specifically about supplements, and the only thing that they did find was supplementing vitamin D did kind of help prolong mortality. So it improved longevity. It didn't necessarily get rid of your ailments, but it allowed you to live with them longer. So that was kind of the one benefit that they found to vitamin D. And that is where I'm at so far. I am 12 videos into a 27 video course, and so just almost halfway. And I will definitely share some more. Like I said, I'll try to talk about protein at some point a little bit more in depth, because there's a lot to unpack there, and I don't want to get this too terribly long and have people falling asleep on me. So anyway, I am gonna get back to work here in about 10 minutes, it looks like, and that may be it for this video, because this one will come out tomorrow. The next one is going to have some weekend stuff again, and it seems like everything's going on the weekends right now. So my Wednesday vlogs, I don't have a whole lot to put in them really, but I am going to make some vegan shortbread cookies as kind of a practice run for Christmas, and I'm taking that on Friday night. We're doing a little friends outing. I used to have a Christmas cookie party here every December, and I've stopped doing that because there's just too much going on and I don't have the time to host it anymore. But I am going to make some of those and take them to that event, and we are actually going out to Cask, and which is just kind of a place here in town. It's like a wine bar. They do bourbons, whiskeys, beers, and we're all going to hang out there. The friend group is going to get together. Then Saturday, Michael and I do kind of our fancy dinner at Celebrations, which is a nice restaurant in town. By our town standards, it would be considered 5-star, but definitely not anything like you would find in, you know, New York City or something. But very, very good food. We're going to do that. And then Sunday, which we'll see if that'll be in the next one or not too, because that will be the same day that the next vlog goes live. But my friend Jenny and I are going to the theater because my favorite movie is in the theater, and that is Meet Me in St. Louis. There is one portion of that movie that takes place during Christmas time, and it's at the end of the movie, and so that's where kind of the main events end up happening. So I think sometimes it can be considered a Christmas movie, but at any rate, it's in the theater, so we're going to go see that on the big screen. And that is what's coming up. And I think that's going to end it for me here. So I hope you all are having a wonderful week.